Hey everybody. I had to restart this stream because I got about 20 minutes into it and there were some audio issues. So I try to have that straightened out at the beginning of the stream. I certainly don't want to do like a 2 hour live stream and have audio issues during the whole thing. Um, how does it sound now, guys? Can you please let me know? Hey AJ and Andrew. How is the sound? It was like crackling before. Perfect. I fixed it. It's funny, like, so it's fixed, but I didn't do anything. My computer is kinda, like, having issues, so, I don't know why. It can, like, edit, 4K video, but it can't, like, show images and do a live stream for some reason. But I guess that's typical with people or with computers, I mean. Alright, so, let me, share the screen here. Well, welcome back to you guys too. It's good to see you all. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Let me start over. Okay, so I'll try to go through this beginning part a little faster. Um, just sharing screen here. Okay, so um, this is a. I just want to say this is a really great example of how we are solving this world script as a group of people. So I caught one of Jacob Israel's recent videos, and he was talking about these Ezekiel's wheels. And I didn't really, I'd heard of the name Ezekiel's wheels before, but I hadn't really like connected it to all this wheel within wheel symbolism that we see, and the third eye and all that. And this symbol, like you see in the movie Event Horizon, this is in a lot of things. And I think that if we take all of these symbols and put them together, we come up with exactly um, what this symbol really is getting at in the Bible, really, Ezekiel's wheels. And I think that a lot of people have been talking about this symbol lately because of the FIFA, the soccer event or football, because the trophy looks like this. And I'll show you that in a second. We talked about it at the end of the last stream, too. So in this movie Event Horizon, this is the gravity drive. This is the portal. They just say before the characters even get to this space vessel, and the vessel is like our temple and or ship, and the space. When they talk about space, they're talking about our inner space. And since this ship has already been to hell, the spikes on this area, and this whole area represents the pineal organ. These spikes are jacketed in black. So when you see black spikes, it's basically a negative thing, and when you see white spikes, like in Superman, it's a positive thing. In the beginning of the first Superman movie, when when baby Superman is being saved from his planet Krypton, he's essentially put inside of a ship or a vessel that's a white spiked ball. It's like the opposite of this, and that's like the good, version of the CV, and this is the V needle bad version of the CV because it's been jacketed in black goo. Hey, Four Jacks, good to see you. Good to see all you guys. I'm sorry if I said hello to a lot of people in the last stream, but uh, this is going a little bit faster now because I had to restart and people were just coming back in. So it's good to see everybody. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I'm just going to try to get through this a little bit quicker this time. So this is from Batman: The Dark Knight Rises. This is the atom bomb, and I don't think it's a coincidence that atom bomb and the name Adam are the same, like homonyms, because when this goes off inside of us, it essentially means we're becoming more like Adam and Eve and able to return to the Garden of Eden. And I also think that the Apex Dome, which Jay Dreamers talks about often and has some epic videos on, frankly, and I'll get into that more later in this stream too. But I think the Apex Dome is essentially like the third eye of the world, and it's essentially where the Garden of Eden is, but it's shielded from us right now. We can't get to it. All right, so this is from Avengers: The Infinity War. This is the Forge, where the Thor character has to forge his new weapon, and he's essentially like a Christ character in this, and he has to stand in the middle of this and experience all this torture in order to forge this weapon, and that's essentially what we've been doing for the last 5 or 10 years. Um, and it's like being inside of a cocoon. And like when a moth or a butterfly is in a cocoon, it's essentially being tortured and destroyed. But then, like the phoenix, it rises, from those ashes and becomes something new that can fly. So that's all symbolic of what we're going through right now. And again, the wheels within wheels, of course, the Ezekiel's wheels. This is the movie Contact, where the character Ellie, like El, she's inside of this vessel in the middle, and she goes through this time travel device, which is the wheels within wheels, to meet her dead father or spiritual father on the shores of paradise. And here we have the atomic symbol again, showing you the wheels within wheels. And this is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. This is the compass. You could also say that like God's presence in our pineal organ or third eye is like a compass, leading us to the North Pole and the truth and all that. And Sonic the Hedgehog is, of course, representative of the blue beam. He runs around really fast like the blue beam, and when he curls up into a spiked ball, that's like the CV ball. And the blue and white and yellow coloring is all Christ colors and central pillar colors toward the top. So this is what happened recently. The president of FIFA went to the White House and showed Trump this trophy, which is the wheels within wheels, and it's golden, like how Trump. Everything he's got is golden. So here's Trump at the ceremony a few days ago, and this is why a lot of people have been talking about this symbol, like Jacob Israel was. And here's another view of it. And I didn't know this, but apparently these are the symbols that they put in their like time capsule that they sent into space to aliens to see. Now, I'm not saying I believe that that happened, but apparently these are the same symbols that they claim they sent out into space. So that's interesting too, because I'll show you in a second why. So this is like an old sketch, painting or sketch of Ezekiel's vision. So this is like God up in the apex dome, and then here we have the creatures that he saw, and they're essentially spiritually linked to these wheels within wheels, and their spirit is inside of this, and wherever they go, these follow them like perfectly. And here's the passage from Ezekiel. Uh, like he says, they work like wheels in the middle of wheels, and that they also have eyes around them, full of eyes. So this is like an artist rendition of what they might look like. It looks just like the Event Horizon engine and the others. This is another one I found interesting with the eyes. And going back to the Event Horizon one too, there were dots all around it, like lights, and they looked like eyes. And there's a lot more going on there too. These filmmakers, they know about all this symbolism. And also, I thought it was interesting that the artist put this like fetus baby in here, because this is kind of like the Star Child in 2001: Space Odyssey. But I don't even know who made this painting, but it's interesting. So this is a famous old sketch of someone kind of peeking out of the dome or the firmament, and it's made by Camille Flammarion in 1888. So you got all the things inside of the dome, but outside of the dome is the Ezekiel wheels. So I think that's like saying that this is something, extraterrestrial. It's something possibly above or beyond our dimensional understanding. And I think there's also a relation too with stars that I'll show you. So this is some photographer named CD. She or he took the Nikon P1000 super zoom camera and got these shots of stars, and notice how they kind of look like the wheels within wheels spinning around. And the official scientific explanation for this is that they're just out of focus and that we're seeing them through too much atmosphere and all that, which is a load of nonsense in my opinion. And Polaris, some of them don't even look like this, but a lot of them do look like wheels within wheels. Yeah, I appreciate the thumbs up, guys. I had to restart the stream. Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I'm just trying to get through this part fast because I already talked about it. So here's the this just came up. I did like a quick Google search for these zoomed in stars, and Vega was one of the ones that appeared the most, at least in the search I did recently. And it looks just like wheels within wheels. And I also thought it was interesting because we were talking about Las Vegas recently and how it symbolizes the North Pole. And there's a lot of cities around the world that symbolize the North Pole, but Las Vegas is one of the bigger ones. And Just like a super quick repeat of that. Just take like the Luxor, it's the black pyramid that shoots the blue beam out of the top, and then right next to it you have the Excalibur, and the Excalibur is the sword in the stone, which is also the blue beam, and they're right next to each other. And then you can literally just go down the line of all those big casinos in Las Vegas, and they're all representative of something that has to do with the North Pole or the North Pole Island or the mountain or something like that, or paradise. One is called Treasure Island. Um, so here, Vega is actually really important, and it used to be the North Pole star, apparently, like how Polaris is now. So is Polaris like the imposter or the steward, that's taking the place of the real Apex Dome. Not obviously, we haven't been there, can't see it for ourselves, just theorizing, but there's definitely something going on there. And you could look up Vega on Wikipedia, of course, and this is, of course, just mainstream science, so I don't really care about these dates, but they do say that Vega was the northern pole star, and it will be again, apparently. So is this the true Apex Dome where the Garden of Eden is? Because it does also look like that, concentric circles, wheel within wheels thing. So I looked up the name Vega, and hey, Rob with Jesus, good to see you, man. It's good to see everyone. Um, so Vega means falling eagle or swooping eagle. Of course, eagle is the symbol of America, and it's also the bald eagle, which I think also puts that dome symbolism in play and the eagle represents the phoenix as well. And then there's also meanings to this too that are interesting, like the dweller in the meadow or one who lives on the plain. As we'll see with the Mandela effect in future videos, there's a lot of messaging that involves meadows and gardens and plains. And this is like the Elysian Fields or the Garden of Eden too. So again, like Vega, it's got a lot of interesting meaning. Even down here too, they're saying like Virgin of the Meadow. So this is all really important stuff in my opinion. So I saw this quick video on Let's Zoom It YouTube channel, and I think this is just some normal dude taking images of stars. So in mainstream science, they say that the focused version of a star is just this dot where you can't see anything, and then hilariously, the unfocused version is the one where you can actually make out the detail and probably see what the stars really look like. So you could even do this for yourself if you get one of these cameras or rent one of these cameras. So when you watch the video, it looks like wheels within wheels spinning, and it also looks like they're underwater. It looks like a light shining through water because there's waters above the dome, and that's like where the Kraken lives. It's like a water, entity, and also there's a lot with God too. Essentially being the God of water, among other things like creativity and creation and all that. Like for instance, Neptune often symbolizes God, and the trident. The trident is like the full tree of life with the three pillars. So here's another star. So this is the focused version where it doesn't look like anything, and then the unfocused version is the actual interesting stuff. You could see the different shinings and reflections, and possibly wheels spinning within wheels. So getting into the Terminator movies, a lot of these logos are Mandela affected. This is a common Mandela effect where you have an E splitting up into three pillars like this, and then it looks like some broken letters. And also just the name Terminator. It essentially means the line between light and darkness, which is obviously a hugely symbolic term. So like the Terminator line on the moon is this, like if you see like a crescent moon, that line of the crescent is the Terminator line between the light and the darkness. And that's also relates to our third eye or pineal organ because that organ has rods and cones in it that can tell between light and darkness, and that's what helps us sleep. But it's also heavily symbolic because when you're asleep, spiritually it's a bad thing, and that's when you have too much darkness. Yeah, I have seen Mikey Smith's a little bit. I haven't gotten too into his channel or anything, but I am really interested in that. I saw one video of his where he took some really awesome photos of Polaris. So yeah, if you're interested in the star stuff, definitely check out Mikey Smith's channel. He's got one of these super zoom cameras, and he takes some really cool photos. So here's the next Terminator movie. Um, it's called Dark Fate, and you could see there's even more Mandela affecting going on here. It's very strange. You have the T merged with the E, the T merged with the O, and this is a telltale sign of the Mandela effect when you have two letters that are just totally merged together, like this N and A. And I don't want to get too into it right now. Maybe I got too off on a tangent the last time, but essentially, what this is, dark fate. So I think this is a bad thing. It's kind of like our third eye or capstone being merged into the left pillar, I would say, which is the north pillar, like we see with the twin towers. The left pillar was the north pillar with the big needle on top, and then the right pillar was the south pillar. And then, as Jay Dreamers, taught me a while back, esoterically, east is up and west is down, and then you have north on the left and south on the right. And you can see that in actually a lot of old, esoteric paintings and things. Oh yeah, and feel free to link any people's channels who I talk about, or anyone that you think is good too. Thanks, for Jax. So here's the poster for Terminator 2. This actually changed for me. If you follow the Mandela effect and you study it, you'll actually see physical reality changing before your eyes. And these are miracles from God, in my opinion. So I saw this change when I was a little kid, actually, I noticed it when I was a little kid because the word judgment changed somewhere around 1990, like around the time this movie came out. So I remember my teacher talking about the word judgment because it no longer has an E between the G and the M. And I was really psyched about seeing this movie, even though my parents eventually wouldn't let me see it in the theaters, and I had to see it later, which kind of sucked because it would have been awesome to see in the theaters. But I remember seeing this poster at that time, and there was an E right here. And I remember thinking that, like, as a kid, I was just trying to rationalize it. So I was like, well, the official spelling for judgment doesn't have an E, but on the poster they put an E because, um, you know, the average movie-going audience would be confused, seeing the word look like this, so they just threw an E in there. But now there isn't an E there, so it literally changed after I carefully, observed it and thought about it. I don't remember this A changing, but I'm pretty sure this is also a change, and this I know 100% is a change. When I was carefully looking at this poster after the E changed, the A being slanted was the only other difference, and this A was normal, and now this A is slanted too. So I've seen this poster change 2 times, and that's a common thing with the Mandela effect. If you study it, you'll see things change after you've studied them, and I've got a lot of examples of this that I'll show you guys in the future. So this is going back to the Terminator Genesis movie. This is John Connor. He's the JC character, Jesus Christ character, essentially, and he's usually the good guy or like the savior character. In this movie, they do play around with that, where he gets turned evil at some point, and he becomes like the Antichrist character, and then he literally gets like jacketed in this black goo nanotech that's like a shapeshifter technology. So that's all representative of the V and what's happening on a microscopic level. So this is Kyle Reese when they send him back in time, I think. I saw this movie a long time ago. I don't remember it too well, but when I saw that Jacob Israel video recently, he mentioned that one of the Terminator movies had this Ezekiel wheel in it too. So I just checked it out really quick on YouTube. So when he gets in this time machine, this again is the Ezekiel wheels within wheels. So again, like, contact, they're associating time travel with this symbol. So here he is in it, and they're spinning around. And then also you see the plasma symbolism. Lightning is plasma. So whenever you see lightning, that's plasma. And also that's like biblical too, because both Jesus and Lucifer are described as moving as fast as lightning, essentially. And that's because on this physical world, their life force or whatever you want to call it is plasma. And Jesus is like the blue plasma, and Lucifer is like the red plasma. That's why you always see the blue versus red stuff. So here's another view as the wheels are spinning. So Harry Potter, I had this on my list. I just forgot to include it in the last video. So the Hogwarts castle, this is like the North Pole castle, and they even put a dome over it, as I'll show you soon. And here you have like, the pyramid symbol, and there's a lot going on too. He's got the lightning bolt, and he has the lightning bolt on his forehead too. So this is the second movie, and this is where we got cut off last time after I was having audio issues. So I think this is the second Harry Potter movie. So he's going up to Dumbledore's office up here, and this spiral staircase comes out. So you'll often see like characters going up a spiral staircase to get to, God or something that's representative of God. And Dumbledore is, of course, the God character in this story. And this also is like the eagle phoenix symbolism too. So Harry goes into Dumbledore's office, and you can't see it too well here, but there's Ezekiel's wheels just all over the place in here. So here you have like one here, you got one here, and there's a big one right here. Here's the big one on the left, better view of it. He walks by another one right here, and I think there's probably one right here, like literally just all over the place. Um, he goes over here. There's more. I mean, this is the same symbolism. So he's essentially in God's room right now, and when you hear or see room symbolism, that's the room again inside of our head. It's the space inside of our head. It's symbolic of the third eye, which is the pineal organ, which has the crystals in it that are essentially like a radio or a communication device to reach God. And it's also, where you could have the Antichrist take over as well. But I think if you're here, you're probably wanting God to live inside your room, not or Christ, not the Antichrist. So this symbolism is really heavy, and also Dumbledore has a phoenix bird, and when Harry walks in, he says hello to the phoenix bird, and it instantly bursts up in flames and goes down into ashes, and so he feels kind of bad about it, and then Dumbledore or the God character comes out, and of course there's a lot going on with domes and pillars, and you could you could look into like the endless amounts of symbolism, and Dumbledore is basically saying, don't worry about it, because the phoenix bird just does that every once in a while, where he's going to rise, from the ashes. He's okay. And again, here's the wheel within a wheel symbol. Here's the ashes, and then the bird comes out as like a baby from the ashes. So this is all the same symbolism. You got the Ezekiel wheels, the phoenix, and the God character. Okay, so this I think is one of the last Harry Potter movies, the second to last, I think. So at the end, Voldemort, who's of course the Antichrist or Kraken character, and I'll explain in future videos why he's the Kraken. But like the first time you see him, there's like vines all over the forest, and then at other times he's got like his like clothes are moving around like Kraken tentacles, and he's like strangling Harry with them. So he's definitely the Kraken, and he goes to Dumbledore's grave. So this is like raiding the tomb of God essentially, or like after Jesus died, and Dumbledore had this Elder Wand, which is what Voldemort wants. And what is the Elder Wand? It's the blue beam. So Voldemort, takes the wand and he shoots it up into the air. And this is literally how the second to last movie ends, with the blue beam shooting up into the air like this. And then this is like the apex dome. And then this is like the North Pole Island. And then this is the last movie, where the Hogwarts castle, which represents the North Pole Mountain, um, the caretakers or teachers of Hogwarts, they put this dome up around the whole area, and then Voldemort here is with his whole Kraken evil army on the outside, and they're attacking the dome, trying to get in, like how the Kraken is outside of the dome trying to get in. And this is kind of like an inversion, because usually, like we saw previously, the blue beam shoots up from the middle of the dome, and that's how the dome comes down. But the blue beam is what takes the dome down. So here it's kind of like a little inversion, where instead of the Christ character having it, the Antichrist character has it, and he's shooting the blue beam at the dome. And then that's how the dome gets taken down. So it gets taken down from the outside. Sometimes in these movies, they invert things. It's not going to be the exact same thing every time, because that would be a little too obvious. Even though, showing you all this stuff, it gets pretty obvious after a while. So Jay Dreamers has some awesome videos on the Apex Dome, and they often write. So I recommend checking that out if you're interested in seeing more artworks like this and his explanations on it. And they often write God's name Yahweh, um, and I know that's not exactly how it's pronounced in Hebrew. This is known as the Tetragrammaton, and they put this on the Apex Dome because that's where God is. And this is apparently from one of the Torahs. So you have like the North Pole Mountain, the plasma, the storm, the apex dome, and then God inside the apex dome. And one thing to keep in mind too, because from an outsider's perspective, because I never really had like a biblical background or anything. Like I only started reading the Bible in 2018. And that was because I saw so many things happening in the world that were related to the Bible. I was like, I better, check this out. But uh, I forgot where I was going to go with that. But I'm just saying, like, I had no history of knowing that. I was going to connect that to something else, though. Oh yeah. So so yeah, from my perspective, when I see this, I see the Nine Inch Nails symbol because I was like a big fan of Nine Inch Nails, and the band name is or the band logo, it's just Trent Reznor really, but the logo is definitely based on this in my opinion. And also the nail, I think this refers to like the nail, and that's why like Christ is associated with nails, and that's also like the needle symbolism, and the needle represents the blue beam, and on a smaller level it represents the smaller needles that are the Kraken needles essentially. So these are just a couple paintings really quick. When you see that this is the sun, but it's not. It's actually the apex dome, and then you see you have the Yahweh tetragrammaton in it, and this is like the plasma tentacles coming out. Like Medusa's hair and stuff like that, like Jay Dreamers would has talked about. So here again, you have the capstone pyramid with the tetragrammaton, and this is again, apex dome symbolism with like the cherubs around. Again, same thing, and you could find like hundreds of examples of this. And this one's really interesting too because it's apparently an old painting again or sketch. And hey, Call for Zero and Jason, good to see you guys. And sorry if I missed anyone in the chat, but it's good to see everyone. I really appreciate you guys being here. Um, so here we got you see you have the sun and the moon and then the apex dome because the sun and the moon are essentially projections from this area. And then you have God living in the apex dome. This is like the blue beam shooting up, and then you have these concentric circles again with like the ruffly cloud pattern. So this is interesting because with this Captain Marvel character, she's essentially like a god character or the god character in these Marvel movies, and I suspect that that's why they wanted everyone to hate her. Like she's like the most hated character in those movies. So I feel like that was like a setup, because Hollywood's of course run by the devil. So they like having the God character in certain cases, be hated. And you can see the Star of Bethlehem on her shirt here in the front. But what's really interesting is in this Captain Marvel movie, she's usually wearing this T-shirt. So why would she like? There's literally like no reason to. They could put her in any T-shirt, but they chose to put her in a Nine Inch Nails T-shirt because they're essentially saying that she's the God character, and she's so powerful in these movies that they actually had to come up with like excuses as to why she's not in like the Avengers movies because she could just do anything because she's basically like God in these movies. So again, it's like multiple scenes where she's wearing this NIN. So they're essentially saying that she's the Yahweh character. And then again with Samuel L. Jackson, I think he's a great actor. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve all the roles he gets, but I think he's around so much because of his name. Um, so like the name Sam means the name of God basically, and Sam also equals 33, and then you have L like Samuel L, so like that's like the EL, and then Jackson. When you see like Jack, John, names like that, Jane, Jesse, JC, that's like the right pillar or like the Jesus pillar essentially. So going back to like the tetragrammaton idea, this is Tetris, which is arguably the most famous and the most played video game of all time, and this logo is Mandela affected. I'm not going to get into why that is because I don't 100% know yet, and I'll leave that to we'll just have like a whole stream or a couple streams on these exact logo changes in the future. But the T is broken, the E is broken, this T is broken, and this R is connected to this I, and it just wasn't like this. And you could see you got the pyramid down here, and this is the blue beam symbolism shooting up into the tet. And again, here's a Tetris and Tetris 2, and this one's Mandela affected too. The T and the E weren't like this, and the R was probably more connected as well. And interestingly enough, the second T here is connected. So I think there's a reason why this T in the first Tetris isn't connected and this T is, but it's just stuff to think about. So Tet in Hebrew is the ninth letter, and as I was saying, nine is like the number of God. So you have like three on the right pillar, six on the left pillar, and nine up at the top for God, and that's the Tet. And this is something I've learned from Jay Dreamers as well. He has a lot of videos about these. He actually he knows a lot about these old like where all the letters came from, and like the original glyphs, and going back to like the ancient Phoenician and things like that. So it's really interesting if you want to check out his channel again for some of that information. So keep in mind too, like, three is often associated with Jesus. He had a church for 3 years. He died at 30. He started at 30, died at 33, was resurrected. Six is like the double of that. So it's like the double, or the doppelganger, essentially. And then nine is God, and six is like the inverted, upside down version of God, because this Antichrist wants to replace God. And here's just some more about the Tet. So you could see, like, in the ancient Phoenician, like, this was the original way to write Tet, and this is essentially a symbol for the North Pole, the X within the circle, and that's why we see. Do I have it? Okay, no. That's why we see certain things with the X Men and the X Files, and I think the X Files also is a Mandela effect, because it has the word "the" put in front of it now, so it's kind of like saying, the files from the North Pole, essentially. All right, so we got ultraviolet. This I brought up in the last video too, but I just want to go over it really quick. So this actress, her last name is Jovovich. So if you want to think really quick about what her first name is, if you're familiar with her, and she's actually in a lot of world script things. So this ultraviolet, she's playing like a Christ character, and there's a lot going on. But she's also the star, and I'll show you that in a second, of a few other things, and like Fifth Element's a big one, but I'll get into that in a second. And of course, you got like the needle buildings and the sword, and there's a lot going on. So this is her in the movie, and she's got this thing on her belt, and what it is, again, is this Ezekiel's wheel with the plasma, and she's like a Christ character. So her name, it used to be Mila, but now it's two L's, like Milla, and it definitely wasn't like this. And this is also a common pattern of the Mandela effect, where L's get added or removed from names. A couple examples of that are Sybil Shepherd has two L's now. Mark Hamill has two L's now. Um, Ed O'Neill has two L's now, and there's like 20 of them, and I'll show you guys that in a future video as well. And I think there could be there's always multiple reasons for why Mandela effects happen, but in this case, and in a lot of cases, I think it's because of what the name means. And this is also why she was cast in so many roles where she's like a Christ figure. So here's another one. Here you can see they actually spell it the old way. I think this is like Getty Images. So you know, and you could find a ton of examples where it was spelled Mila, because that's the way it used to be. So her first name means gracious or dear, but it also means miracle. Yeah, so in Spanish, it's miracles, which is what the Mandela effect is, in my opinion. Miracles from God. And her last name, Jovovich, relates to Jove, which is essentially another name for Jesus. And I know some people disagree with this, but I don't think it's a coincidence. So, like, you have, Jupiter, and another name for Jupiter is Jove, but another name for Jupiter also is Zeus. And in some languages, like Hispanic languages, they pronounce Jesus Jesus. So I don't think it's a coincidence that you have the Zeus, that sound in the same place, and then on the other end, with Jupiter being Jove. Jove is often Jove. First of all, is very similar to Jehovah, and people also say, by Jove. Like in the Sword in the Stone movie, the Disney movie, at the end, when King Arthur pulls the sword from the stone, someone yells out, by Jove. So I think all these names are basically just the same name for Jesus, essentially. I know some people disagree with that, and I'm not 100% on it, but that's where I'm thinking right now. So, getting to this Fifth Element movie, of course, heavy blue beam symbolism going on here, and they even have like the flying vehicles going into the blue beam, which you could relate to the event in New York, as well as our flying vehicles. Like, when we're able to fly, we'll join God up in the air, as it says in the Bible. And she's like the Christ character, he's like the Antichrist character, and then Bruce Willis basically represents us. Also, you got like the dome symbolism. You know, there's a lot going on in these posters, of course. So she's like the Christ character, and I know her colors are odd. This is generally more of like a Kraken type thing with the long red hair. But they mix these things on purpose in Hollywood. So anyway, when she's reborn into the world, like Jesus is reborn and like the blue beam is reborn, um, she's in this dome enclosure, and it's also like a cocoon. So she's essentially in like the dome firmament cocoon. It's like Christ being reborn into the dome firmament cocoon, which is what's happening right now in the world. And this basically represents like the Kraken army of like soldiers and scientists, you know, and it's like the Kraken outside of the firmament. And then she breaks through the glass. This is what the blue beam does, and she defeats the Kraken really easily, and escapes the room, you know, in a flash. And this is one of the scientists. And after she escapes, he goes, "She's perfect." And when you see people say the word "perfect" in these movies, they're referring to Jesus or God. And they could also be referring to the Antichrist as well. You know, you have to use your own discernment as to what they're talking about. So, you know, this is like the Kraken army, you know, trying to hunt her down. And then she's doing like the Christ pose. This is an interesting thing to keep in mind. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on this with the black palms, but that it's there for a reason. It's because she had to crawl through these tunnels, but it's obviously there for a reason. And you know, doing the Christ pose. This is like the squatter man pose, as Jay Dreamers talks about often. And this is essentially like the Atlas pose, which is again a North Pole symbol, um, like holding up the dome. And then when she dives off, this is more like the Christ pose or like the victory pose. So then at the end of the movie, she's in this central area in the temple. So this is like, you know, more North Pole symbolism where, you know, the character that represents us has united with the Christ character or the princess, you know, the female spiritual energy that has returned to the world. And it's similar to like what we were talking about with like the Mario Brothers movie, like where like Luigi represents us, and he's with the princess at the end, and then they have the blue beam come up out of the dome at the end of that movie. And here, the same thing happens. So like this is the same thing as the ending of the Mario Brothers movie, and this is the rainbow bridge. So you have all the colors of the rainbow becoming white because that's what happens with light. When you mix every color in a perfect harmony, you get white. And then she shoots up the blue. It's not blue, obviously, but she shoots up the blue beam out of her mouth. And when you see this X, you know, you have the concentric circles in the X. This is the North Pole. So they're essentially, you know, going over the rainbow or above the rainbow, and then the blue beam shoots up out of the temple that represents the North Pole. And then here you have, you know, from the Earth, you know, this is the blue beam shooting up, and then it shoots right up into this into the apex dome. And in the story of the movie, she's stopping a meteor from hitting the Earth, but in the esoteric symbolism sense of everything, this is the blue beam shooting up into the apex dome. You can see another view of it here. Another view of it here. And then, you know, she's out of energy, and now they're essentially, you know, married. And that's like the marriage, you know, symbolism. And they're together now at the end of this movie. And then even this character, I forget his name in the movie, but his real name is Chris Tucker. So it's like, yeah, he has the Christ in his name, and he's holding the beam as well, just to reinforce that. So she also plays this role of Alice in Resident Evil. And there's actually a lot going on here. I don't want to get too into it because there's just a lot to get to. But Resident Evil is a huge thing. I actually never really got into it. I saw the first movie, and I didn't play the video games. Um, but a lot of people have, of course, and it's huge. And again, yeah, this is like the Alice in Wonderland, which is like the Christ character in that story. And you know, I'm sure she's like the Christ character in this story. And again, she's like the Christ character in this story, and I think it's because her name basically means miracle from God. And also ultraviolet. This is like saying going above the rainbow because ultraviolet is the color that's above violet, which would be at the top. So now getting into the Lord of the Rings movies, of course, you know, the symbolism's way over the top. Both these characters are like Christ characters. Gandalf's more of like a Holy Spirit character, and then Aragorn is more like Christ coming back to the physical world type of character. And he's got the sword, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Tolkien started Aragorn's name with AR. I've noticed that a lot of words that relate to God or Jesus have AR at the start. You could think of like an arc, like an electrical arc. You could think of art, like artwork, all the creativity and everything. And then, of course, King Arthur. And there's a lot more too, if you think about it. So he's got like, the triple crown, the yellow and blue. This is an old painting or a tapestry of King Arthur, like the 3 and 3 for the 33, so it's all the same symbolism throughout history. And King Arthur is a Christ character who pulls the sword from the stone, which is the blue beam. So back to the first Lord of the Rings movie. If you'll remember, the Fellowship is on this mountain. These are the Misty Mountains, which is like the for the North Pole mountain, Mount Meru. Whenever you see something that's in these movies, it's generally going to be referring to Mount Meru, at least at some point in the story. And the villain, he's like an antichrist character, of course. Saruman. He used to be, the best wizard, but he was seduced by Sauron or Satan or Saturn or the Kraken, essentially. And he becomes evil, and he creates this storm on top of the mountain. And you'll see a storm in just about all of these movies and TV shows as well. So the characters, particularly the hobbits, aren't strong enough to get through the storm. Of course, the wizard and the elf and the other characters could weather the storm, but the hobbits, that particularly Frodo, represents us. And he's not strong enough yet to go through this particular storm, so they go under the mountain, which is a more dangerous path. And you'll probably remember this scene. It's this gateway is lit up by the moonlight, and of course, there's a lot of tree of life symbolism here. And this is like the dome, of course. There's a lot going on here. You have the star, the crown, of course, and this is also just like the Arkenstone that they show us in the Hobbit movies that I talked about in a previous stream. And interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure this is a hammer and an anvil. So again, with that sword and the stone symbolism, because that's a huge Mandela effect now. In the Disney Sword in the Stone movie, the sword is in an anvil now instead of a stone, and I think that symbolizes the forge, like how we see in Avengers. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, so yeah, like when you see all these symbols and put it all together, they're all just talking about the same thing essentially. So you could just get overwhelmed with all the complexity and stuff, but I think the best way to go about it is to simplify everything as much as possible. So like when I look at this, I see the tree of life, the dome, and what we just talked about, and here we got like the seven stars. There's a lot. I don't want to get too off track. So they go underground here through this gate and under the North Pole Mountain, and under the mountain is essentially like the underworld or the tomb, and this is like the land of the dead, and this is at least on a spiritual level where we've all been for at least a decade, I would say. This world has just felt like an upside down, twisted version of the world that it used to be. And Legolas finds the black goo needles that killed these dwarves in this tomb. And then what happens right after that? The group is attacked by a kraken from the sea, and this is all the tentacles coming out from the kraken, and it grabs Frodo, and they're trying to save him, and Legolas is shooting needles at the kraken. So you'll often see needles paired with the kraken imagery in these stories. Here's another view of the kraken attack. um oh yeah, so just a couple more things along these lines. This is the second Doctor Strange movie, and just looking at this right now, this I don't think this was like this. This is weird. I'm just seeing this for the first time just now, but I don't remember this being like extended legs to ours is a very common Mandela effect, and then having these two like this. This is strange to say the least. But yeah, that looks like a Mandela effect to me. But so anyway, this poster is breaking the glass. This is like the firmament, the mirror worlds, that type of a thing. So this movie starts out with this Kraken attack, and you have the third eye, essentially, the one eye in the center. And this character here, her name is America. So this this is like the Kraken, chasing down America, and she also represents the white star. I'll show you that it's on her back. And whenever they pick out names and street signs and store names and things, these movies they could pick whatever they want. So they always pick something that relates to this symbolism. So this is happening on Green Street, and I'll talk about the streets and things like that more. But the Green Street is essentially what I would call the right pillar. Red would be the left, green would be the right, and then you have yellow, blue, and white in the central pillar. So this is like the Kraken attack on America on the right pillar, which is like the spiritual pillar. So you can see all the tentacles. So here's the star on her back because she's like the white star. This is her. So Doctor Strange is trying to save her from this Kraken, and he blinds the Kraken. So this is like that third eye blind symbolism. That's why that band was so popular, and they actually had their main song was called Jumper, which relates to a lot of things. Because when your third eye is blind, you're essentially spiritually fallen or falling. So that's like the jumper. So he reaches out and he grabs this pole. So this is the blue beam symbolism, and then he shoots this pole to kill the Kraken right through its eye. So this is the blue beam shooting through the apex dome, and then this is also the masculine symbol, if you know what I mean. And keep that in mind too, because I'll show you the feminine symbol in a second too. So essentially, what's going on here is at the North Pole, um, the genders mix, and that's what the Vesica Pisces is. It's the blending of the sun and the moon, like the eclipse. It's also the blending of the masculine and the feminine pillars. So the blue beam is a masculine shape, but it's a feminine energy, and that's like Jesus. Like Jesus was a man, but he's more, but he's spiritual, which is like the feminine pillar. And the Kraken is more of a female shape. That's the Vesica Pisces, also, and but it has like a masculine energy because it's like the physical world pillar. So please refrain from using this word in the chat. Not that anyone has yet, but I'm just saying, like, if you mention this movie, just call it like the squad, or like the S squad or something. I'll just say the squad. And that's just because YouTube has an issue with this word. But I'll show you this symbol here too, or this symbolism here too. So this guy is like the Pinhead character. They call him the Thinker, and his name is also, I forget the exact name, but it's like GG. So I think like when you see a double of what represents God, it's like the Antichrist character or the devil character. So like a T would be like a cross representing Jesus. So like a double cross would be Antichrist. G would represent God, so double G. And that seems to make sense. I'm not 100% on it, but that seems to be the case with a lot of things like L, double L, that type of a thing. We've talked about that in past streams as well. So he's obviously like, Pinhead. He's got all the needles in his dome, and he's teaching these guys who are like politicians and military leaders in another country. I forget which country they're in. It's like a Central American country, and he's teaching them about this alien Kraken entity called Starro. So again, with the star symbolism, because the star, represents our, third eye and what we can become, either like the positive, white star pointing up, or the negative, black star pointing down. And and the O also represents like a crown, so it's like star O. And what it does is it sends out these little replicas of itself to attach to people's third eye, and it creates like a hive mind, army of the dead, essentially. So these people want this, for their country, to take over their country, or the world, perhaps. And it's also like a blue beam symbolism here. There's a lot going on in these movies. This is another one of those movies where like every like minute or two, you could find like some kind of really intense world script symbolism. The director is James Gunn, and James Gunn definitely knows all about all this stuff. So this guy asks, where is this? He says, where is this Project Starfish? Where is this alien Kraken? and it's up in this tower. So you'll almost always see the Kraken up in the tower, and this is where the secret laboratories are with the Kraken. And then they pan down, and at the bottom you see these concentric gateway symbolism again, and also the twin pillars. And the tower is called this Jotunheim. This woman is the one who assembled the squad essentially, and she's just explaining to them what they're going to have to do. They have to go to this tower, go to the top, and again you have like the needles, or like like the 5G tower type of symbolism, and or like the communication tower, and the Kraken is up here. And she's explaining to them about this guy. Um, so this character is shown in the beginning of the movie, and I forget what he's called. He might be called Javelin, but he's got the Christ coloring of the yellow, blue, and white. And they also show him with the white spiked ball right behind him, and he's carrying his weapon is the spear, which is the blue beam. Here he is again. Now, and I'll show you here. So he gets killed pretty much right off the bat in the movie. So this is like the Christ character dying for us essentially, and then this is Harley Quinn, and she gets the spear from him. So like she's like feeling kind of bad that he's dying, and then right when he dies he tells her that she's going to basically have to do something with this spear, but he dies before he could tell her what it is. And then she gets kind of mad because she's like, what am I supposed to do? But this is kind of like us, it's like, what are we supposed to do with this blue beam type of symbolism. um and so she gets up, and then she gets captured here. There's a whole bunch of people surrounding her, so she gets captured and put into this prison. And they're saying, meanwhile she's here. So when you see these vines, this is symbolic of like the Kraken tentacles. And then it pans down, and she's all tied up in this she's like in a pit. And when people are in a pit or at the bottom of a well, that's like being in the underworld, under the North Pole Mountain again. So it's similar to what we saw in Lord of the Rings there. So she gets pulled out of this pit and then put into this outfit, because she's going to be taken like the princess, like in Mario, to be held sort of prisoner in the villain's castle. And that's something that you'll see in a lot of these movies. And when she's looking at herself in the mirror here, she even says something like, I'm a princess, because she represents that princess, Sophia, blue beam energy, like the Jesus, so she's essentially becomes the blue beam character after that Javelin character died. So this is another character. I mentioned this movie before, but I didn't get too into it. Um, but this guy is known as a Polka Dot Man, and whenever you see polka dots in these movies, it represents a virus. So he basically shoots polka dots. That's like his weapon. So like James Gunn, like people they're like, oh, it's so great how he picks these random characters to be in these movies, and then he makes them into like these relatable, interesting characters. But the reason that they picked this character is because of the polka dot symbolism. It wasn't because they were just trying to do something clever or whatever. I mean, it's clever, but the reasoning is because of this world script symbolism. And like I said in the other video, and I'll show it again, but there's like a shark character which represents the CV spiked ball and all that. So they were going to save her from this prison, but she actually saves herself before they even get there. And I forget what they say, something here about the spear. I can't show you guys video, unfortunately, but I forget what they say here, but it's something to do with the spear and all that I've been talking about. It's hard to keep all this stuff in mind. So when they get to this Jotunheim tower, they show it like this, and all these letters are symbolic of all these things. So I don't want to get too into it, but of course you got like the space needle here. You got the this is like the devil horn apex dome type symbolism. Here you got like the X in the circle. It's what we were talking about with the Tet North Pole symbolism. You can relate all these to the North Pole and to the three pillars essentially. So when they get there, the storm starts, and like I said, the storm is you're going to see a storm in pretty much all of these stories. So they get to the tower, and that's when the storm starts. Here's the storm, Harley of the storm, and they're also in this vehicle now. That's like the Christ blue and yellow coloring, blue, yellow, and white coloring, like the Columbia coloring, for instance, the woman who holds the eternal flame at the start of Columbia Pictures. And all these characters, I'm not saying they're good characters. This is like a comedy movie essentially, and these are all kind of like anti-heroes essentially. But in this scenario, they're representing the Christ symbolism and character because they're going up against the Kraken in a moment. So inside of this tower, whenever you see all these monitors like this is representative of the all-seeing eye. And then here's inside the tower, they're having all these fights, and here's the polka dot man shooting the polka dots, and the polka dots, also represent the CV because that's the V. I don't want to say the words too much, but not the V, not the needle V. The VIR. US. So these dots actually hit this device here and spark, and they cause an explosion, which is what you'll often see is things that represent the CV, like sharks. They'll often explode in these movies. They'll spark and have explosions because that's what goes on inside of our pineal organ. And then they immediately cut to the shark character that also represents the CV, and he's basically in this firmament area where he's got the glass, and all the glass is breaking and cracking because of that explosion, and then it all breaks and floods, and this is like the firmament opening up and the waters coming down. So here we have Starro, which is the Kraken, and there's the third eye, and he breaks out of the tower, and then they show the squad versus Starro the Conqueror. This is all heavily symbolic. So this is the squad. This is like the main character. He basically probably represents us. And then here's the shark. That's another CV representation. And then, like I said, the polka dot man, he represents CV. And this girl does too, in a way, because her power is controlling rats, and rats are associated with plagues. They're also the word rats is also the opposite of star, like RATS, so it's like an inversion of the starro. And the rats are actually what ultimately kill Starro. And also, when you see rats and mice and things, they're usually representative of us as well. That's why there's a lot of like maze symbolism and things, and like you'll usually see like rats and mice in mazes. For instance, in the beginning of Dark City, the Kiefer Sutherland character, he he's like the Christ character, like the Holy Spirit character in that story. And the first time you see him, he's holding like I think a rat, and he's got like a big maze in front of him, and he's doing experiments. So, Polka Dot Man. So yeah, so here's like more like the how the Kraken is like the female symbolism. So this is like the Vesica Pisces or the female symbol, and all these little starros come shooting out of it like little babies. But they're just the Pinhead guy calls them extensions of itself because it's all just like one entity, and it's a hive mind. Hey, Tobin, good to see you, man. And I haven't been keeping up with chat, sorry, but it's good to see everyone in chat. So when these little krakens get shot out, they're all going after individual people, and they have little tentacles shooting out too, like the kraken, and then they attach to people right at their third eye, and this creates the kraken army of the dead. Essentially, this is like the zombie army, and it's usually a hive mind, and it's a hive mind, in this movie especially. But when you see this in movies, the kraken's usually, it's like the Borg in Star Trek. It's a hive mind entity. And here you have it again. So like the little starros, they don't stick to this shark character who's also called King Shark, which is like Christ symbolism also with the CV. And in the movie's story, they don't stick to him because this character they portray as really stupid. But the reason that they don't stick to him is because he represents the opposite of what they are. So there's no attraction. So then here's the army getting activated. That's something that you'll see too. Is a Kraken army is like just kind of waiting to be activated, by the main entity. So here's like the Kraken over his army. So what happens in the end is Harley, she takes the blue beam spear and she jumps off of this cliff, and this is also like a leap of faith. And you'll often see a leap of faith in a lot of these movies, and this is something that Jay Dreamers brings up in a lot of his movie videos. where he goes in depth on all these types of movies. I don't think he's done one on this movie, but this would be a movie that I'm sure he would enjoy checking out. And so she's essentially taking the leap of faith with the blue beam, and then she puts the spear right through the apex dome again, like this. And then when she goes in there, it's actually water. And then she actually doesn't really end up doing anything inside of here. It's actually the rats that defeat the Kraken. But when she's in here, she has like this huge smile on her face, and it's like she's in paradise. Because, like I was saying, I think the Garden of Eden is inside of the Apex Dome. So she takes the blue beam and goes up into the Apex Dome, and she's like super happy in paradise, essentially. So okay, going back to Lord of the Rings, this is the second movie. Of course, there's a lot of heavy symbolism with the two towers. Of course, this is Saruman's tower. He's essentially the right tower, and then Sauron's tower is the left tower. And you can look at them different ways too, because they both represent the North Pole. But in terms of the right pillar, he was good at first. He was the White Wizard, and he was a good guy, but he was taken over by the left pillar, and that's what happens if you let the left pillar take over. You basically have two left pillars at that point. I call it the left pillar takeover. And so, like, as we've seen, this could be the lamb pillar, and this could be the wolf pillar. So the wolf wants to murder the lamb and then take it over, so you have two wolf pillars. But vice versa, the lamb doesn't want to kill the wolf, because the right pillar isn't a murderer like the left pillar is. um, what you'll get then is, if you're ruled by your right pillar, it's essentially turning your left pillar into light, like taking that darkness and overcoming it with enough light. So if you have enough light in your spiritual body, you can overcome any darkness, and then you're ruled by your right pillar instead of your left pillar. And of course, both of these towers also, these symbols, or these set pieces, they represent multiple different things at once. So Saruman's tower also represents the North Pole at times, especially in this movie. And of course, this also represents the North Pole tower. So up here you have the apex dome. Usually they show the Sauron eye. In this poster, they actually don't show the Sauron eye, and I have a theory on that too. But that's like, it has like the Vesica Pisces in it, and that's essentially the apex dome. And this is like that devil horn symbolism that people use, because they're worshiping, the Kraken entity that's on the outside of the apex dome. But what they show here too is the full moon. And when you see a full moon or the sun in movies, it can often represent the apex dome, because the moon and the sun are projections from the apex dome. And then inside of this moon, and the moon is the right pillar and the sun would be the left pillar, so the moon would be the good characters, and inside of this moon, they have the Holy Spirit Christ character, the physical Christ character, the character that represents us essentially, and the female, spiritual energy too. So they're all right inside this full moon. So getting into the movie, you guys might know this as Helm's Deep, and think about the name Helm's Deep. It's like saying deep inside of our head, which is where the pineal organ is. And here you have the dome symbolism, and they focus on this dome, and this is where the wall is vulnerable, and where they bring down the barrier at Helm's Deep. And how do they bring that barrier down? They Saruman puts this black powder and stuff into these black spiked balls. So here we have the negative CV, the black, the jacketed black CV, and this is a explosive powder. And you could also look at it too as like the black goo, although it's not liquidy, but it could be like, the nanotech on a microscopic level. So this could explode at any second. So he's telling his worm tongue here to keep the fire away from it, because these are explosive. And like I said, these CV spiked balls, like the naval sea mines, they explode. So the army of the dead, or the Kraken army, they bring these black spiked balls to the wall under the so you have these black spiked balls under the wall, and they're stacking them up. And then once they have them all piled up, one of them runs in with the sparks. So here again we have the sparks, in reference to the CV. But this is the negative CV. This is the jacketed black CV, the Antichrist, V components. So he takes these sparks and he's running through the crowd to explode these black spiked balls. And Aragorn sees this, so he yells at Legolas to take him down before he can do that. So now here again we have the needle symbolism. So this guy ends up being full of needles, and he's obviously represents the black antichrist, and he's got the sparks, and he goes running and dives into this under the dome, and then the dome explodes with sparks, and the whole barrier explodes. And this is Helm's Deep, having its wall come down, and then the Kraken army is able to invade into the dome. And not sure where I wanted to go with this, but I think a lot of people think that these star forts are a Mandela effect. So I mean, Helm's Deep is a fort. So whenever you see fortresses in movies, it's representative of our pineal organ as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then the Mandela effect, I think, also points to this with these new star forts that are all over the world. And one of the most notable star forts for me is under the Statue of Liberty, because I just remember, this portion on the ground. I don't remember this giant star fort being under the Statue of Liberty, but that's always been there. And this is also known as Liberty Island. And I had never even heard of this. I always thought that the Statue of Liberty was on Ellis Island, um, and Ellis Island has the EL also. So it's like a lot of people point out how this is like a symbol of Lucifer. So there's a lot going on here. It's like the SOL, which is also a symbol for, or a name for the sun. Was moved from Ellis Island to Liberty Island. So there's definitely a lot going on here, but I'm just mostly pointing out the star fort. There's a lot of changes to the Statue of Liberty herself, or himself, also. And I do want to talk about iPet Goat. I also want to see. Well, you guys can look up star forts on your own, but there's a ton of star forts that look like this all over the world. I have like a list of them, but I do want to get through this a little quicker too. This is going a little longer than I was hoping, because I'm only about halfway through what I wanted to get through. So going to iPet Go 2 again. So here you have the black goo. Whenever you see, ink, or like tattoo ink, oil, black oil, coffee, hot chocolate, anything that's like black, that could be like black goo. That's generally what it symbolizes in these world script pieces of media. Like in the Body Snatchers movie, people are often drinking coffee. In Event Horizon, there's a lot of scenes where they're talking about coffee, things like that. I'll show you guys all the coffee stuff another time. I actually have a video about it. I think it's in my Eclipse video. Um, so this mixes with the water, and what they show is the Statue of Liberty, and then under the Statue of Liberty, a star fort appears. So I find this really interesting, but I don't want to get super into it. And I know that the number of points are different. This is more like the Star of David, or the Star of Remfram or something. And it's also just like the combination of the up and down arrows, which is essentially the twin pillars merging into one pillar at the central pillar. And then this is also like the spiral portal, and this is like, you'll often see like a dark world and a light world, and then a portal between them. And then the arm is cut off of the Statue of Liberty here, and this actually happened in a Mandela effect too, known as the Black Tom explosion, that happened in 1916, which is an interesting mirror date, because you have like the 9 and the 6, and that we've talked about. And it's like the date itself is a mirror. And pretty much no one has ever heard of this Black Tom event, so that's just something to look up on your own. I'll get into it in the future, but there's a lot going on with the Black Tom event too. Like a kid named Arthur was killed in it, so that's like Jesus symbolism, and us being in like a dark world, without the magical Christ child. So there's a lot going on there. So just getting back to Lord of the Rings, this is the third movie. This is after Frodo goes down like a dark path, and he gets rid of Sam. And again, with that Sam name, that's like the name of God. Sam basically represents like the Holy Spirit, who's encouraging him and helping him to climb this mountain. And when he gets rid of Sam, because of the bad advice and lies from Gollum, then he's attacked by the Kraken. And when you see like a spider or giant spiders, that represents the Kraken also, because it's these tentacles essentially. So he's making his way up the mountain, and this is like the Kraken over the dome symbolism. And then it's a little hard to make out, but this is like the stinger or the black needle. And then Frodo gets hit with the black needle, and he gets rolled up into this what's called the spider cocoon. So he's inside this cocoon now, and he's asleep, like spiritually asleep or spiritually dead. And he actually does die, and then he's reborn again like the phoenix. But that's after Sam comes and saves him, because Sam is like the God or the Holy Spirit character. So Sam comes with the sword and the blue beam, essentially the eternal flame. So with the combination of these two things, he defeats the Kraken and then saves Frodo, so that Frodo can be reborn like the phoenix. And this is the Hobbit movies, which has a lot of the same symbolism too. So I think this is the second Hobbit movie. So they go into this spider forest, and notice just all the tentacles. Like, these are vines, of course, but when you see this, this is letting you know that there's going to be a scene that involves the Kraken coming up soon. So again, with the tentacles in the forest, and this scene was just way longer and more, intensive than it needed to be, and it's because they're conveying this world script symbolism. So here's Bilbo going through the forest with the tentacles, and he almost falls into the water. He's supposed to not go into this water, but again, you have like the black mirror, the water mirror symbolism, and this is just him, trying to hold on, looking in the mirror, and they're all kind of falling under a spell and falling asleep. This is the bigger dwarf. They have to carry him around because he fell asleep, but this is symbolic of him being spiritually asleep, because they're all succumbing to this Kraken, you know, influence on their minds. So Bilbo looks back as he's walking, and they're all like kind of hallucinating, and he sees himself. So he basically sees like his doppelganger. So again, with that, double mirror, doppelganger imposter symbolism. So they have Bilbo climb up to the top of the forest to see what's going on, because they're lost. And when he gets to the top of the forest, he can breathe again. And that's another big thing that happens in these movies, where the characters can't breathe, especially when there's a Kraken thing going on. So he gets to the top of this forest and he can breathe. And there's like these blue butterflies, and butterflies are symbolic of this positive, evolution, especially blue butterflies. And when he's looking around, he says, I see a river, I see a lake, and I see the lonely mountain. Sorry, just give me a second. So what he's seeing when he sees the river and the lake and the lonely mountain, this is all North Pole symbolism. Because if you remember, I don't think I have it here, but if you look at the maps of the North Pole that I've showed before in these streams, there's the four rivers, and then there's a lake in the middle, and then there's the Lonely Mountain, or the, Mount Meru, Mount Olympus, Rupus Nigra, in the center. So, he sees the river, he sees the lake, and he sees the mountain, which is exactly what we would see if we were going to the North Pole, and that's above above this Kraken nest. Sorry, my voice is getting kind of tired here, and I usually have allergies too. So down in the forest, the spiders are wrapping up all the dwarves, and this is actually after Bilbo goes back down. He falls back down into the forest, and he gets wrapped up too. So this is the Kraken wrapping up its prey essentially into cocoon pods, and this is Bilbo inside of the cocoon, and he's asleep. That's again the sleeping symbolism of being spiritually asleep. And but he still has his sword inside of the cocoon, and the sword is what saves him, because that's the blue beam. So again, what we're seeing here is the Kraken symbolism over the dome, and he shoots the blue beam up into the Kraken, and that's how he kills the Kraken and frees himself from the cocoon. And this sword that he carries is literally blue. It shines blue like the blue beam. Now here it's not shining blue, because it only shines blue when there's orcs or goblins around. And here he's fighting spiders, so it's not glowing, but it's the blue beam sword. And he rips out of the cocoon stuff, and so now he's got the combo of the blue beam and the wedding ring. This is the eclipse. This is like the marriage to God, essentially, because we're like the brides of God, or Jesus. And with that, he's able to, now the spider has like a ton of eyes, but he shoots the blue beam again through like the central eye area, of the spider to kill it. This is another spider because there's a bunch of them. And then he names his sword Sting, and stingers are always associated with needles too, because they inject you. Usually, it's a bad thing. In this case, it's a good thing, but usually the stinging symbolism references the devil or the Kraken's needles with the black goo. And I'll show you that a bunch too in future videos. So, and then what does he do once he's freed? He frees his friends. So that's what we've been trying to do. Once we're free and we see the truth of what's going on, we try to free the people around us too. And some of them don't want to be freed, of course, or most of them, but some do. So then going back to this character, um, just never forget that this guy, he's basically the father of the V. So he's like the Godfather, which is also the Don, and Donald. The name Donald means ruler of the world. So that's why I haven't really gotten into it, but a lot of those mafia movies also reference Trump, like The Sopranos too, the TV show on HBO. And this is like the imposter colors. So these are like the Columbia, white and blue colors, which are good. This is like Christ colors, but it's the inversion. You have to use your own discernment on these things. So this is the, imposter Christ, and Trump is also from the Christ bloodline, and I showed that in a previous video too. So if you look up Trump's heritage, he's actually from the Christ bloodline, which is all just like a sick joke. So he also often does this pose here, which a lot of people have noted. Here's just some images. He's always doing this pose, and we could obviously get into it, but I just want to show you this for one particular reason, because of this. So this is the first person who got the V, and they just happened to take this photo op of her leaving, and she's doing the same symbol with her hands that the father of the V usually does. And there's a lot going on here too. So like if you see this image, and you think that this is like so brave and wonderful and you want to follow in her footsteps, then in my opinion you've got some spiritual issues, because to me this looks like pure evil essentially. So as another world script joke, the first man who was the second person here to get the V, his name was William Shakespeare, just basically tell everyone that the whole world is a stage, as Shakespeare is credited with saying. And if you don't understand this being a joke, then again, I don't really know what to tell you. So going back to her name is Sandra Lindsay, and this is when she's getting. Now notice she's wearing this jacket. I know it's like a sweater, but it's like a jacket, and it's like essentially a black jacket. You got like these black spiked balls on it, like we've been seeing, and the jacket is over the Christ colors. So she has like the Christ colors, but they're jacketed in black, which is what I've been talking about. Like the CV was essentially a good thing from Jesus or from God, and the V jacketed that good thing in this black antichrist technology. And the black jacket is something that you'll see in a lot of things. And one of the most obvious ones is this character Venom, and it was first introduced to major movies with Spider-Man 3. And again, you got the mirror symbolism, the black mirror, and all that, and the spider is the Kraken. So inside of this church, and when you see churches, they usually represent the North Pole. So here's Spider-Man. He's all jacketed in black, and he's at the top of this church, and he wants to be free of this black goo. Why do I say the CV was a good thing? I think it was essentially like they show on the blackboard in IPEC Goat 2, that it was essentially seeds from God to spark our spiritual evolution. And when people got the V, it essentially corrupted and inverted that gift from God. And that's also exemplified in a lot of Mandela effects, like I was showing in the last video with the Dolly and Jaws one, if you want to go back and check that out. Um, so here he's entering the temple, and then this is another character played by Topher Grace. And I actually have an internet friend named Topher. So if your name is Topher, this isn't a and like if your name is like Luke or something that has like negative connotations, it's not like a don't worry about it. This symbolism is just used. They use like skin color and all kinds of things in this symbolism. It's got nothing to do with us individually. But I think the reason that they have this character or this actor playing this character, because a lot of people thought that he was miscast in this role, but I think it's because of his name Topher, because he essentially has the Christ taken out of his name. So then he appears in this temple with this black water mirror, which this is like the holy water, but it's like the black mirror. And then he dips his fingers in it and he puts it right on his third eye. Now, of course, he's doing the cross symbolism, but I think what they're actually showing us here is putting the black goo into his third eye. And then up at the top of the bell tower, now you'll often see bell towers in these movies too, because like the bell is like the dome, which is like our head. You could say like I got my bell rung, stuff like that. So it's all symbolism of the North Pole Mountain and the top of our temples. So he's ripping off these black goo tentacles because he wants to be rid of this venom. And notice how they said they put like venom in the V. So he rips this thing off at the top of the bell tower, and then he throws it down. And again, here you have the X inside the circle because this whole thing represents the North Pole. So he throws this black goo jacket down, essentially into the abyss or the underworld, and that's where this Topher character is, and he essentially gets the black goo put on him, but he likes it. So he lets the tentacles, just like have their way with him essentially, and he becomes one with the black goo and all that, and he likes being Venom. So here's his like transformation. So think of this on like a microscopic level, essentially, and on a spiritual level, of course. So then they have him like biting or eating the audience. So this is like a black magic spell, essentially, in my opinion, that the filmmakers are casting on the audience. And it's also like saying like these are like the needles, the teeth, and this is like entering the belly of the beast. So whenever you see something right at the camera, like people looking at the camera, people shooting the camera with a gun, stuff like that. They're putting spells on the audience, so it's very sinister. You could find the truth in all these things like we're doing, but the devil is essentially running Hollywood, and it's a very sinister situation. So here's the newer Venom that came out in 2018, and it stars Tom Hardy, and they often use the name Tom in these movies because the name Tom means twin, like Tom Cruise means twin cross, like the double cross. And this is all about the twin, the two pillars. And he of course likes Venom also. He lets the left pillar take over his right pillar. This is a little bit, it's a little inverted here, but um so this is him at the bottom of the Black Dark Tower, which is at the bottom of he's basically at the bottom of the North Pole Tower, and he looks up and here's the tower. I was showing this in a previous video too because it's just like this Lego movie tower. So in the Lego movie, the Kraken or the Kraggle is at the top, and they often have like cute names for the Kraken. So like in the Lego movie they call it the Kraggle, and in Aquaman they call it like the Karathan, but it's all just symbolic of the Kraken. And in Venom here, the Kraken also like these are like the laboratories where they're working on the Kraken and trying to get it into the population. So he looks up and puts the black goo jacket on so he can climb up here. And this is actually known as the Needle Building in San Francisco. So this movie takes place in San Francisco. And a lot of these movies actually take place in San Francisco because they want to get this needle building symbolism into the movies. So he climbs up to the top of the needle, and then he's literally sitting on top of this needle. So he's like a droplet of black goo at the tip of a needle, essentially. And he also looks out at the city, and this bridge looks like our DNA. So in this movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I always thought this was just like some random horror movie, but it's incredibly important. And like body snatching is in tons of movies that you would never expect. Like it's in the Matrix, for instance. You have like sleeping characters in pods who can be body snatched, at any moment by agents whenever the agents want. People don't often think of Matrix as like a body snatcher movie, so it's hard to see. But these are like little pieces of like the Kraken essentially floating through space. And in this movie, they treat it as like a plant or a fungus. And I think that there's also plant or fungus elements to what was in the V as well. So the first thing they show you on Earth is all this mist, which represents the North Pole, and then like this needle building like communication tower thing. And then when you go through the mist, the first thing they show is the needle building because Invasion of the Body Snatchers takes place, at least the 1978 one with Donald Sutherland. It takes place in San Francisco also, and they show you like one of the first things you see in the movie is this needle building. And then here's the mist, and I think this is the Golden Gate Bridge, which is also very important. The words Golden Gate and Bridge are all heavily symbolic on the world stage. So here's the needle building again. They have like the mist passing over the needle. So Leonard Nimoy, spoilers, but he's the main villain of the movie, but he's an imposter. So he's pretending to be a psychiatrist and everybody's friend, and he's basically steering them in the wrong direction. And he's basically, saying like, your husband, wasn't taken over by something else. Like he's just your normal husband, and he's having a bad day or something. So he's actually extremely sinister. He's like the politicians and the news media and all the stuff, lying to our face all day, like the NASA astronauts and people like that. So here he is. All these characters are in a house together, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And he's got the red with the red glove and all that, and he's trying to fool them, into thinking that nothing is going on. And if you noticed, next to Jeff Goldblum, they even have a like a picture or a painting. I think it's like a blown up photo of the needle building. Just in case you haven't seen it enough in this movie. Here's the needle, and what's interesting is this movie has nothing to do with needles. So there's no reason for them to constantly show this needle symbolism unless they were purposefully combining the symbols of this needle with the body snatching pods and what's going on in the movie. So then Donald Sutherland, and again it's like Donald, like the ruler of the world, and Trump and all that, he goes outside to talk with Leonard Nimoy alone, and they literally frame the needle building right in between their two heads. So I mean, there's a lot going on here. You could even say it's like the Janus symbolism and stuff like that. And then again, when Donald Sutherland falls asleep, and then there's a pod over here, and this is like a dome symbolism. But this pod starts replicating him after he falls asleep, and this is the needle building right in front of him. And this one's interesting too. I talked about the Sonic movies a little bit yesterday, and at the beginning of this video, I showed you how Sonic 2, they have that Ezekiel wheel symbolism. And these movies, these are I've only seen the first two. I still have to see the third one, but these movies also are just like loaded with symbolism. Like every minute or two, again, you'll be noticing stuff. And if you notice, here's the needle building again. They take place in San Francisco, and Sonic, of course, represents the blue beam and the CV spiked ball, and then of course Jim Carrey, JC. It's an inversion, but he's the red and black Kraken. Essentially the devil or the Antichrist character. And then you got like dome symbolism, eclipse symbolism. It's got all of it. Here's another poster for the movie, and it shows you how he's the blue beam. So this guy is the main character of Sonic, like the main like human character, and he's also the one of the main characters in Westworld. So he's I don't know anything about this actor, honestly. I don't even know his name off the top of my head, but he could likely be a I don't know how to say major player, but he's in some world script heavy things. So he's literally wearing a shirt that says San Francisco with the needle building, and this is when he first meets Sonic. So he thinks there's like an intruder, so he grabs his needle gun. It's like a tranquilizer gun. He's like a cop character. So he puts the needles in the gun, and here's the needle shirt again. And then Sonic is in like his garage or something, and Sonic has the eclipse, wedding ring symbolism. This also functions as a portal. These are basically portals. This is how Sonic got to our world essentially. So they're saying, this is like an extraterrestrial entity as well, which is what the CV is, in my opinion. And this is like, spike ball symbolism. So he opens the door and finds Sonic, and he's got like the beam. Whenever you see a flashlight, it's like the beam. This is Sonic with the thing. So he shoots Sonic with the needle. So this is like the CV versus the V type of symbolism. And it's just here's like a close up. Here I come, like with the needle. And this is also like needle shooting through the dome symbol. Uh, Sonic. So Sonic. Oh, so Sonic's getting tired from the tranquilizer dart or needle, and he drops this eclipse ring portal, and it falls on the ground, and it spins around, and it opens up right to the needle building. So it's pretty over the top. And then there's a whole lot in that movie that I could get into. I might do like a one video just on all the Sonic movies after I watch the third one. So this movie Nope is another this has like that black jacket symbolism I was talking about with Venom. So I mean, this is kind of like Apex Dome symbolism. This is the black horse, I think, represents the V, like the four horsemen of the apocalypse type of thing. So again, this is kind of like there's a lot going on. It's like Apex Dome, I think, symbolism. So these are the main characters, and they live on a horse ranch, and the ranch is like the North Pole usually. So he's got like the X hat here. Now they're brother and sister, and she's pointing at a photo, and she's saying, "Hey, do you remember this horse?" And this movie is also by Jordan Peele. And in the last stream, I mentioned his movie Us, and so he's another big world scripter because that movie Us is all about doppelgangers, and Get Out has a ton of symbolism in it too. So this guy Jordan Peele, he knows what's up. So she's like, "Hey, do you remember this horse? When our dad she's like that their father is dead. So again, with the spiritual dead father, and she's pointing to the horse saying, "Hey, do you remember this horse that our dad used to have?" And the horse, this is the photo, and the horse was called Jean Jacket. So like they have like chapters in this movie. So like one of the chapters is called Jean Jacket. And now think of this like the other Gene, like Gene, and that's essentially what the Black Horse V symbolism, or the in reality was. It was a jean jacket. It jackets, people's, microscopic on a microscopic level. So there's a ton of Black Horse symbolism in this movie, of course, and they name this UFO alien entity Jean Jacket because this UFO symbolizes the V essentially, and it's a shapeshifter, and it also symbolizes the apex dome, and it sucks things and people up into it like the apex dome likely will. That's something Jay Dreamers talks about extensively too. So the thing that saves this guy from being sucked up into the Kraken entity is this rainbow dome. So there's a ton of symbolism going on here, and this is how it's like a shapeshifter. But I just wanted to reinforce this whole jean jacket idea because it's something that Hollywood pushes. And just notice, when a character has like a black jacket on or something like that, because it's not like, I'm not saying it's like 100% thing, but it's definitely a thing. So this also happens in the Mandela effect with this character, the Fonz, or Fonzie from Happy Days. So he was always known as having a black leather jacket, but now he has a brown leather jacket. So Fonzie, for a number of reasons, I think, doesn't have the black jacket symbolically now. Because first of all, he's known for being really cool. So cool people in God's eyes, wouldn't get the V or wouldn't get the black jacket. And notice too how they have him with the blue and yellow here. And I'm not saying that people who made Happy Days knew or cared about any of this. I'm saying that God is using this scene to symbolize some things for us, to make some things, clear about the world script. And this scene is all about him jumping the shark. Yeah, exactly, Tanet. So the shark represents the CV. So, he's not falling into the water and drowning and going down into the abyss. He's jumping up and rising above this CV event. And his name is also Arthur, like King Arthur. He's Arthur Fonzarelli. And you can find photos of him wearing a black leather jacket. But predominantly in the show, if you look it up, he's got a brown leather jacket, and like, so that doesn't even make any sense, if you think about it, because this character was known for being cool. It's just some show for a general audience. What's cool symbolically is a black leather jacket. So he would obviously be wearing a black leather jacket. So here I showed this before, but this is just more symbolism in the news that they show us that has all this dark, twisted stuff. Like they're injecting the needle into Jesus's third eye here, and you got like the black tattoo. And if you have like tattoos and you're seeing this, again, it's like the name thing. It's not about what us individually like that. It's just about using these things in a symbolic story. And this is what they did to the Empire State Building, which is like big needle building. They put the Kali symbol on the. So like this is like something I think a lot of people forgot about, but it's just so crazy. Like, so this happened in New York City, which is a symbol of the North Pole, and this is the big needle building, and they put this Kali symbol on the North Pole, which is like a Hindu goddess of destruction, like big time, left pillar symbolism. And they got the third eye stuff going on here, and the tongue and all that. There's a lot going on. But like, what, like, it's just so crazy that they did this, during the pan stuff. And again, this is something they did with the needle building too, the Empire State Building. They had this light. It's like an emergency light that was spinning around, and they had like these sirens blasting too. Like, so it was like hell on earth type of symbolism going on in New York City, like just really crazy. And then the Economist, symbolizing the V as essentially like the Christ, savior figure. So this is all obviously dark and twisted by Satanists. I showed this before too. Another thing I saw on Jacob Israel's channel with the Kraken at the top. And this guy worked for this company, and this was all a big nonsense story, but it puts that Kraken symbolism up at the top. Most people don't even notice that. So here we have, this is more like imposter, Christ imposter symbolism. So, and also the horseman again too. So notice how Biden, this is him getting his first V, and he's got the white horse, which was, it's like the first horse of the apocalypse. And then here's the Christ name with the CC. It's like the 33 for Christ, and the Christ colors of they got the white star with the yellow, blue, and white. So these are all good, really positive symbols. And then here, they have the left eye and like the black mask. So this is like them saying they're black jacketing this Christ symbol that's in all of us, and they use skin color and stuff to portray this symbolism as well. And they only focus on his left eye here, very sinister. And again, when he went to get his second V, now he has the red horse symbolism, and again with the same Christ symbolism behind him. Just totally horrible and over the top. And again with the blue, this is like the imposter colors. And this is something they did too with these sheep. And the lamb, of course, symbolizes Jesus, but also sheep. Like counting sheep is like how you like people fall asleep, so it's associated with like sleeping. That's why Trump was in like the sheep commercial with the 9, and then also the 11 sheep. And with sheep too, it's like calling people sheep. It's like they're farm animals, like and they'll just do whatever they're told, type of a thing. So he's like, yeah, sheep are popular with the people. So I think this happened in Germany. So this guy takes all these sheep, and yeah, the My Pillow guy. That's actually a good. That's a good connection there. Horseradish, thanks. So you have all these. And sorry, guys, I haven't been keeping up with the chat. There's just a lot of stuff to get through. So they arranged these sheep into this shape. And this is on ABC News. I mean, like, it's just so ridiculous. Like the way that people, or the fact that people couldn't see through this is just so ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. 10 head, but wait, there's more. There's tons more. This is the guy behind that. So the movie They Live. This is also a Mandela effect. This used to have an exclamation point here, and that's actually another pattern too. There's a few that have that, and one of the bigger examples is the Pixar movie Up. So if you're familiar with the movie Up, Um, it had an it was like UP exclamation point, but if you look it up now, there's no exclamation point. And I actually had or have a list of movies that I want to watch or rewatch, and Up is on that list. And I wrote down on that list UP exclamation point. And now if you look at the poster and all that, there's no exclamation point. But They Live also. So it's almost like taking, an exclamation and turning it into just a statement of fact, like, yeah, they live, they're here. So this is one of the first things that we see in the They Live movie, and it's this big mural. And what's right in the center of the mural? This movie has nothing to do with this, but it actually has everything to do with this. But a normie wouldn't recognize that, of course. This is the title screen, and there was like an exclamation point right here, most likely. Then, there's a lot of stuff, obviously. It's kinda like a spiked ball, the rock, the black cross. This could even be like an Elvis thing here. There's a lot going on. Um, so just like what the movie is, Roddy Piper puts on these glasses, and this is what things look like normally, and then this is what things look like when he can actually see the truth. And this is why they put the God, all-seeing eyes symbol and stuff like that on the money. It's to say, like, this is your God. And most people do treat money like it's their God, especially, atheists. And this is like, what I think this is Times Square in New York. This is what the world looks like, when you could actually see the truth, all these advertisements and things like that. And there's also some imposters here, this guy. So you're able to spot the imposters if you could see the truth. So a David Bowie. So obviously David Bowie is heavily connected to all this. And the man who sold the world. So for starters, this is another piece of residue for the old dollar sign with the twin pillars. You'll often see this in old media. We saw it in Back to the Future and in Mars Attacks. Um, but now the dollar sign has always just had one pillar. So that's again the two into one pillar symbolism in the Mandela effect. So I mean, there's a lot of symbolism going on here. The this is kind of like the North Pole Tower, or going over the firmament type of thing. But what I'm pointing out is, and this is the original release of the album in 1970. And if you look at this in like a thumbnail view from far away, that's funny, Tenet. That's awesome. Um, just a line from the They Live movie. When you look at this from far away, it looks like he's carrying a giant syringe, and the speech bubble on the cover of this album was left empty. And then 50 years later, in 2020, this is the TT, this is when they released the V, they released a 50-year anniversary of the man who sold the world, and this is like selling your soul, and this is like giving up your soul for the V. And he literally says, in this re-release in 2020, "Roll up your sleeves, take a look at your arms." Like, so just, like, really let this sink in. This is so, over the top crazy that I don't even really have the words to describe how crazy it is. So this is the first album. This is what it looks like. Go on eBay and buy one. It's probably cheap, or just look at them. This is the speech bubble was empty on the cover. And then they release it the year that the V comes out, and he's like, "Roll up your sleeves." This is what this was actually about, and this is like the symbol for America. Like the cowboy and all that. There's a lot going on. You got like looks like broken glass in the tower, and I'm sure that there's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff, but that just that one, speech bubble with the needle is so crazy. So in Back to the Future, even as a kid, I thought that this was weird that there was a character named Needles, but they had to put this in um, because of all the symbolism. And this is even like Needles over here, and this is like Donald J. Needles essentially, and his address is at 88. So you got the 88 again, which is like the time travel, which relates to the Ezekiel's wheel thing. Yeah, Donald J. Needles, essentially. Um, so a note too, so they're saying he's 47 and president, and then he was born in 1968, and then 33 years later they came down. Future has a ton of tower symbolism in it too. Um, And I don't know if too many people point this out. People doubt the ties, like he's got like the twin towers here, but back here too, it's like the twin towers. And then if you watch it, these lights go down like this, and then they go back up to the top, but they don't like go incrementally back up. They just shoot right back up to the top, and then they go incrementally down again. So it's like the two towers fall over and over again back here. And this is what they have now at the Twin Tower area. It's called the Tribute in Light, and it's actually made of 88 lights, and it also looks like twin blue beams that shoot up into the sky. Like this is like crazy. And if you look at it from the ground, it looks like they're when like these lines are parallel, but this is how our vision works, where things converge into the center. This is why a lot of people get tripped up about the shape of the Earth because they think that the horizon is an actual physical thing, but it's not. It's just the way our vision works. So you have like the sky converging with the ground at a center point. So if you look up at these towers, they look like they're going straight up to the apex dome, basically. And this was just a really interesting photo that someone took where there's all these birds that get attracted to these blue beams, and this is kind of like shooting up into the apex dome too. And the birds are very symbolic of like flight, like our souls flying, like uh, when we're spiritually evolved, we're able to essentially fly spiritually and maybe physically too after the end of the world or the after the world changes because things are going to be very different physically. So it's definitely possible that we might even be able to fly. I mean, this whole thing is like a dream anyway, so it just matters what rules God sets in place. Pretty much anything's possible, and it's going to become like a more magical, awesome world after all this. So needles again. Oh, so I'm just saying, like, what are the odds that all these things are in this movie? You have the shark. This name Jaws equals the letters COVI, and then there's a D, and that both those words equal 53. So it's like the same thing. So it's like C19 right here, and then with the shark symbolism and the Jaws symbolism. We talked about this a lot in the last video. And again, this was probably in my second live stream, just all the connections with Trump and this world stage stuff and all the predictive programming. So it's just like, what are the odds of all that? Um, and then here we have the rise of the superhuman. This is another economist. The Economist is just so crazy, but they got this Vitruvian man with the needles, and then here's the dome, and this is like the Kraken tentacles coming through the hole in the dome, and they go into his dome. So the superhuman, according to these Satanists, is the person who's all V'd up and full of the Kraken, essentially. And maybe they might get some actual superpowers from that, but it's all just going to be in service to the Antichrist, and the real superhumans are God's people. um but first, these people might have some powers or something, who knows, but it's ridiculous. And this is also like the Neuralink, which is probably going to be coming out soon. So I think people basically have this is like the mark of the beast, inside of them, but it's been like growing and evolving, and then they're probably going to release like that Neuralink that Elon Musk started, and that'll probably be like some kind of final capstone to this Antichrist temple. So man, do I want to get into this? I'll try to get through this quick because this is pretty crazy. So this is something I learned from Jurassic Liars channel a long time ago. October 28th is a big date because it's the 301st day of the year. And the reason why that's important is because there is no 666th day of the year. Yeah, I can't wait for my glorified body too. Sick of all these allergies for one. But yeah, that'll be a pretty glorious day. Looking forward to it. So there's no 666th day of the year. So if you wanted to call something a 666th day of the year, it would be this, because it's the 301st day of the year. And if you count one full year of 365 days and then you go through the year again, this is the 666th day. See? Now, what's interesting about that is that's when this character was born. And I don't want to say too much here, but he's the guy who made this. And also with the Mandela effect, this is really interesting. So a lot of people, including myself, think this is a Mandela effect. So in my opinion, this is God putting the 666 on medicine, essentially, especially medicine for this type of a thing, the CV deal. Um, so this has apparently existed since the late 1800s and has been like a normal company. So you could literally just go on eBay right now and buy like old bottles of this stuff. And here's like some examples of some that people have. And there was also this. It was called Satanic brand. I think it's like a laxative or something. But these were around a long time ago. And I just don't see how it was possible for that, and some of the things are so ridiculous. So here's, like, old photos with signs for this, like, 666 stuff, and, so there's a channel actually called, Need Input, and he's a really great, Mandela Effect channel, and he's got a great video on this, so, definitely check him out, and I think, Sandy Diva has also talked about this, so, check her channel out too, but in terms of, like, a specific one-off, video, Need Input has a great video on this, so definitely check that out. That's where I got some of these shots. So these are real photos of this thing that really existed, and you can look it up for yourself. And this is where it gets like really twisted. They apparently handed out fans in churches, like for people to like fan themselves in the heat. And the fans had these 666 medicine advertisements on them. So like how crazy is that? And I just looked up on eBay really quick. This is something that you could just buy right now. And like someone is like selling these like these are real. And it's just so crazy. And I don't see how this is even possible. Like, how could you have like a 666 medicine company back in the day? Like it's just you know, I think it's pretty clearly a Mandela effect. Here the kid's like pointing right into his third eye. And then the dogs are barking 666. Like, it's just so absurd. Like, all these Christians in the United States wouldn't have had a problem with this. Like, this company would have been ran out of town, it's crazy. Um, so anyway, here's a Boardwatch magazine where they're in the mid-1990s, they're associating, Bill Gates with the Borg already. I mean, there's really not much of a reason to do this, but, Bill Gates, note that he was born on the same day as Jonas Salk. So h so Jonas Salk is the guy who made that first, V that everyone, started hearing about and using, and then this guy was, like, the face behind the new V, and they have the same birthday, which happens to be the 666th day of the year, and, yes, and this is, like, a Freemason, group, he's got, like, a YouTube channel that, called like Gates Notes or something, and they put out this video around the time of the V, and it was for quote unquote mosquito week. And what are mosquitoes? They're essentially like flying needles. And he's got like this grim reaper in the like the Black Mirror bog here, and they just zoom in close to it, and it's made up of mosquitoes, and like the mosquito like sucks the blood out, and the world's deadliest killer. So this guy who's behind the V puts this video out at the same time. Like how crazy is that? And here's like it's just crazy. And then another thing too that Jurassic talks about is Elvis in 56. He was the one who popularized taking this V, and he did it um do I have it? He did it, they just say October, but he did it on October 28th, the 666th day of the year. Uh, well, you could look it up for yourself, but he did it on October 28th, so that's not a coincidence. And he's also like an Antichrist character. Um, and here too, that year, the same year that Elvis did that, this horse won 2 out of 3 of the Triple Crown, and 2 out of 3 is 666, and it just happens to be named those. So now this is like my contribution to the October 28th stuff. So I was watching this Stranger Things show a couple years ago, and I noticed in the second season, which is all about the Kraken and the V, it starts off in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is like the PP Antichrist, and then the date is October 28th. So they start off this whole season of Stranger Things, which is like Netflix's, arguably biggest show. on October 28th, and this whole season was about the V's and the Kraken and imposters and all that. And one of the first things they show you too is all these characters wearing masks. And this, it's like needle buildings. And then right away, when they introduce us to the main characters, they're playing this arcade game called Dragon's Lair. And this is based off Mandela Effect, a logo for Dragon Slayer, the movie. So here you see, like, he's got the sword. Here's like the spiked vines that are like the Kraken tentacles. And the dragon is like the Kraken too, because the Kraken is like the Hydra, which is like the many-headed dragon. So it's all the symbolism is related essentially. So they're playing this video game, and you have to rescue Princess Daphne. So she has like the yellow and blue coloring, and again, this is like that princess energy or spirit that we need to rescue from under the North Pole Mountain or inside the North Pole Mountain. And then this is what gives rise to Jesus's blue beam. It's that feminine, spiritual right pillar energy. And so how, the blue and yellow. So here's like, the crystal. I don't want to get too into it because I kind of want to wrap this up. But here you have like the King Arthur character with the sword, essentially, fighting the dragon, saving the princess, and then again with the sword and the stone symbolism. So they got the sword in the crystal, which is representative of the third eye, and then it shoots up like the beam, which is like the blue beam. So tons of needles in this Stranger Things season. I showed this in the previous video, but this is the character who gets taken over by the Kraken, and he becomes the imposter, and he has the red door on his forehead here. Um, they also call him Zombie Boy because he's like in the zombie army. Essentially, the Kraken army is like the zombies. He's drawing this image, and this is like his older brother here. And there's a lot going on. You got like a cross here, but this is like the main focus for me of what I'm saying here in this presentation. So this is like a little like Kraken tadpole thing that one of the main characters finds, and he keeps him as a pet. And he names the character D'Artagnan after the Three Musketeers. And the second I heard that, I was like, oh, they're naming him D'Artagnan because of the dart symbolism, because a dart is like the small satanic needle, like the satanic version of the North Pole needle or the blue beam needle. And then from the rest of this moment on, they just call this little pet that he had, this pet Kraken, Dart. So that's why you see dartboard symbolism in so many things. And then here's, of course, the giant Kraken. The Kraken, like, invades his space. Getting to this show, Naruto. This is like one of the biggest animes ever made, and of course, Naruto is like the another Christ character with the yellow and blue symbolism as well, like we saw with the princess and so many others. Um, so if you're not familiar with these like long running anime swords or anime shows, um, often have to do what's called filler, and that essentially means there's like a comic book called the manga. Yeah, it's fine if you hate it; it doesn't matter. I'm just talking about the symbolism. Um, so they call it? They don't want to catch up to the material that's in the original comic book, which is called the manga, essentially. Um, so sorry, I'm just kind of like running on empty here, just trying to think. Um, essentially, they have what's called filler, and in this filler, they can do whatever they want with the story as long as they don't like impede on the main story, and they're just like essentially filling time. And most audiences hate filler episodes of this type of stuff because it's just like kind of like a waste of time because nothing ever can happen to move the story forward. They're just kind of killing time until they have enough material to start with the actual proper story. So in this, and here it shows you how much filler is in some of these anime shows, and Naruto has like 41% filler, which is huge. But in these filler episodes, they can do whatever they want, right? So in this particular episode, it's all about this type of thing, and there's like a pan event, and they say this episode starts out where they're like, "Oh, fools can never catch a cold." And Naruto, he's always going to this guy's shop to eat, and he's saying Naruto overate, so maybe they can give him like an injection for overeating. And he's like, "Oh, an injection." So got all this like needle symbolism with the Christ character. And I have like the episode of this is the episode name is called Outbreak. Um, So anyway, here's like the glass breaking. This is like the firmament dome breaking, and the Kraken invades his space. This like Kraken army of people, and they're trying to inject him with these needles. So like this whole episode is just needles all over the place, and you could probably guess when this episode came out. Um, yeah. Yeah, here they come breaking through the glass. And he doesn't know who they are, so he's seeing another shot, there's just needles, like just this whole episode is just needles constantly all over the place. This character gets sick, so she's saying, did someone sneeze on you? So they start like a whole like shutdown type of thing. And this came out in 2010, just so you know, so way before anything like that happened in real life. So here so we cut to the intro. Like these animes usually have like a music video type of thing for the intro credits. So it starts off with Naruto down in like the abyss, essentially underwater, drowning, and these are all like needles. And then he's lifted up by his friends, and he represents the Jesus Christ energy, like the blue beam. So Jesus is lifted up by essentially all of us, and they keep pushing him up to the light side of the world, to the light portal, and he's underwater. So as he comes up, it makes this dome, and then the dome bursts, and they push him up, and he comes shooting through the top middle of the dome like the blue beam. And then when he's up in the air, he looks down and he sees the spiraling abyss below, and here's like the right eye for like the Christ symbolism, and he's doing like the Christ pose. And then he looks down, and this is the other main character of the show, and they're like best friends essentially, but they hate each other because Naruto's like the Christ spirit, and this is Sasuke. He's like the Antichrist spirit. So Naruto sees him still down in the abyss, and he keeps sinking lower and lower because he's like the Antichrist character, and he has like the red and black eyes. And this is also a Mandela effect with the extended R. I've seen this logo a lot, and I've seen this show, and it definitely did not have this extended R right here. So yeah, so here's the episode name. It's called Outbreak. So she's like basically on the ventilator here, and this is like Kraken tentacles and the needle in the hospital. And then these are the people in like the hazmat suits on the outside, and they're saying it's like the chakra virus. So in Naruto they talk about chakra all the time, but that's interesting too in terms of what happened in our world. They're saying it's an extremely contagious mystery virus. It's a nasty thing. It turns chakra into a fever, and I think this is essentially what happened with CV. It turned our a spiritual awakening and evolution into a fever and like flu symptoms. So they're saying that the main character Naruto is the source of the virus. This is also like saying Jesus is the source of the virus. So here we have the needles. He's still trying to figure out what's going on. What are they doing with an injection weapon? He thinks so. Naruto's kind of like a dumb character at times, so he thinks that like maybe they're actually trying to give him an injection for overeating. So he goes to this guy to like complain about it, and he's totally off base. So then these the Kraken army is still trying to get him with the needles, and he evades it, but this guy gets hit with it. And here you can see oftentimes they show needles putting people to sleep, like in Sonic and in countless other things. You can see people getting shot with needles and falling asleep, and of course that's in real life it's like a tranquilizer dart, but in symbolically this is spiritual sleep. um so we have the full moon. They're making so it's just kind of a joke, they're making too much out of overeating ramen. Looking around, okay, so here the whole city is empty, the whole village that he lives in, and this is something that we see in a ton of things too, um empty cities. Let's see. Oh, so yeah, so they're showing like a tumbleweed going through because there's no one around, saying everybody's gone. So just some examples of this, and keep in mind that this happened in reality. So all these things I'm going to show you came out before this happened in reality. But what did we see? We saw empty cities during the Pan shutdown event, and this was predictively programmed in all these types of movies. So here's Night of the Comet, where like the sky turns red, which is what will very likely happen when Armageddon happens. And this person is vanished essentially, and the whole city is like empty basically. Everything's empty. This wheel is just kind of spinning here. In Devil's Advocate, they have the whole city is emptied out before the last confrontation. In Vanilla Sky, this movie is also all about like the Twin Towers and the Mask, especially. And again, Tom Cruise with the Twin Cross, so he's here in an empty city. I Am Legend, all these like zombie movies pretty much have empty city scenes. It's a totally empty city. No one's around. The Road, same thing. So this is all predictive programming for when we had the shutdown. So this is showing you that like this, it's legit. Like when you see these things happen many times in all these stories, they happen in reality because it's like foreshadowing of events that happen on the world stage. And Alice in Borderland. This is another Netflix show made in Japan, where they have the empty city, and of course it's like Alice in Wonderland. And there's a lot of like gender bending in the show. It's actually a pretty interesting show, but there's like some weird stuff going on in it. But a lot of interesting symbolism. The last episode is extremely interesting in my opinion. Yeah, so another zombie. This is 28 days later in London. I think the whole city's empty. So going back to Naruto, he's in this empty city, and the Kraken army is still trying to attack him. So they put, again, you got the red door right over the third eye here again, and he gets out of the way because he's a ninja. He's good. So the needle, misses him, and then but it cracks the glass behind him. Excuse me. So he's like saying, what's going on here, and this also too is like North Pole symbolism with the X and the concentric circles. And this is kind of like a needle here in the background too, which is kind of odd. But he's saying, why are people from my own village attacking me essentially? And that's like what was happening during all the V stuff. It's like, why are my, friends and family and neighbors, going after me? And then he's saying, the leader of the village ordered it. So this is like, saying Trump ordered it, like Operation Warp Speed, essentially. So then here's all the people in the shutdown. They're all being held in like this cave under a mountain, essentially. And there are certain ninjas in the village who are sent to get Naruto because the other ones weren't good enough to get him. So this character, she says she's going to put him to sleep, and then she says sweet dreams, and then she takes out these scrolls, and then these scrolls, these are like the Kraken tentacles all over the place, and then these tentacles they summon all these needles, and it's like hundreds or thousands of needles shooting at him. And he also uses clones. This is like one of his powers. So again, you have like the clone imagery, you got the needles, you got the tentacles. It's just totally over the top. Every like 30 seconds in this episode is something ridiculous. But he, escapes, evades, her because he's good. And this is also, it's kind of like tails the way she's holding it here, like tail tentacles. And this show has these beasts in it called tailed beasts, and they essentially represent the Kraken. And Naruto has the nine-tailed beast actually sealed inside of him, and that's like the Kraken inside of him. And then he learns from another character who has the eight-tailed Kraken inside of him, which is like the octopus stuff. And I'll show you that in a future video. But he learns how to essentially tame the Kraken, which is basically what enlightened people do. Because I think we all have microscopic elements of the Kraken inside of us, all of us. But our lightness, that's what we need to evolve. It's like the torture inside of the cocoon that helps us to evolve. So uh, if our lightness is strong enough, the lightness overpowers the Kraken darkness. So it's not something to worry about. It's actually a good thing again. So here's another ninja that comes to try to put needles in Naruto. And Naruto, I think, sends a needle back at him or something. So he like controls like insects, but it's kind of like the black goo. So these are like little insects, but it looks like a black goo kind of takeover, like you would see in the Matrix, like when Smith takes somebody over. It looks like this, where the black goo envelops them. And here so I don't want to get too into it, but that didn't work against this guy, and he's actually behind Naruto, and he's trying to cover Naruto in the black goo like this, but Naruto gets out of it, and he's saying, it was hell, like because the black goo is what sends you to hell, essentially, like in the Event Horizon with the black spikes in the pineal organ. So they have the characters in like the quarantine type situations, and they're saying, wait, there's no virus. They're saying, oh, there actually wasn't a chakra virus after all. Naruto wants an apology from the leader of the village for a mistake, and she's saying it wasn't a mistake, it was a drill. And they actually told the people under the mountain there before, I didn't mention it, but that it was a drill. So again, with all this like drill symbolism, and again too, you got the polka dots, which is like the virus, but also, oh yeah, so they're making like a light joke out of it, like, oh, it's just a drill. Like this whole episode was so funny, it's just like a little comedy episode, as like filler, until we can get back to the main storyline. But they chose to do this. They chose to do this whole episode. And when did this episode come out? Here's 183 Naruto Outbreak. It came out on October 28th, which is the 666th day. So, all these episodes here are basically filler. So it could have came out any day and they could choose when it could come out. So they purposefully chose to release this episode that's all about the needles and the future, pan event and all that on October 28th. And I think that's it for the presentation today. So about the same time, that's good as we've been doing. So thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I wasn't keeping up with the chat. I saw some interesting things pass through, um, and I'll check it out on a replay, I guess. But I appreciate you guys all being here. And my voice is pretty much shot, so I think I'll call it a day. Um, but yeah, until next time, guys. Wish you all the best, and God bless.